Welcome to the Library of Awakening, hosted by CyberX, a space where curiosity meets courage and ideas come alive. Here we explore the thoughts that challenge, inspire, and sometimes even unsettle us, because growth often begins with discomfort. So, welcome to the journey. May this space inspire you to ask questions, explore the unknown, and most importantly, to awaken. This is the Library of Awakening. Alrighty, everybody, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode of Library of Awakening. In today's episode, we are going to be diving into a chapter about the creation of mankind in the falsification of history. Scrolling up here, finding the book in the CyberX Discord. We're going to dive into this one today. If you all enjoy today's read, do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe. All of these books, keep in mind, can be found inside the private CyberX Discord if you guys want to tap in. So coming over here to the falsification of history, our distorted reality by John Hammer. And scrolling down here, this chapter is titled The Origins of the Human Race. Now, I will say this. In this chapter, one thing that I don't really like after having gone deeper down the rabbit hole, more than surface level information on this topic of the Anunnaki and the creation of mankind, because it is surface level. It's definitely something that you could dive so much deeper on. And so, where could you dive deeper if you like this chapter and you like this type of information? I just want to give you guys a little tiny tip off on an author that I really appreciate, Jason M. Brashares. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He also has a YouTube channel called Archaeological, but these are his books, and he does phenomenal work and goes, in my personal opinion, a lot deeper in detail on these topics. It's all about knowledge accumulation and taking bits and pieces from different authors and different, concepts and theories and different people's work and putting it all together in your own way that you understand it. But if you guys do want to dive deeper into the topics that we're going to discuss in this chapter today, and it seems maybe slightly surface level for you, for some others who are hearing this information for the first time, it might not be surface level. But if you've been, an advocate of diving into the fallen angels and the ancient pyramids and the origins of humankind and this, and that, then this chapter that I'm going to read today might be surface level. So again, if you want to dive into some texts that are a lot deeper than surface level information, go check this author out over on Amazon. You guys can find all his books. All right. Nonetheless, so starting here, falsification of history, chapter titled The Real Origins of the Human Race. We're going to read maybe about 7 to 8 pages of this, and then I'll let you guys interpret the rest of the book yourselves. Starting here, it says, almost everything they teach us about the ancient history is wrong. Origins of men, civilizations, and pyramids, Homo sapiens are not a result of evolution, and biologists will never find a missing link because intelligent man is a product of genetic engineering. Sumerians are not the beginning of civilized man, but rather the beginning of another cycle of humanity. Dr. Sam Semar Osmanagic, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, probably not, Osmanagic, professor of anthropology at the American University in Bosnia. So, if we can eliminate evolution as a prime suspect in our search for the true origins of life on Earth, where does that leave the argument? In my humble estimation, that would leave but two alternatives: the biblical story of creation by a supreme being or one other possibility. I will exclude this former option for the simple reason that everyone reading this book already has at least a rudimentary knowledge of the Adam and Eve story in the book of Genesis, and quite frankly, the absurdity of the entire proposition should be very apparent. There's another book that I want you guys to take a look at, and it is called The Genius of the Few, and it goes into extreme detail on the Adam and Eve story. Very lovely book. Surprisingly to most people, the elite of this earth firmly believe that there are direct descendants of a race of extraterrestrial beings who visited Earth millions of years ago. This is not mere speculation on my part, but one of their stated, well documented, albeit not well publicized beliefs. Again, the evidence that the planet was visited and seeded by extraterrestrials in a dim and distant past is widespread, but nevertheless as far as is possible, and is generally concealed from the unthinking general public, who seem to accept lies at face value with no question when given them by the mainstream. But the vehem, vehemently, but the vehemently defend the status quo and decry other mooted alternatives when these are presented to them from other discredited sources, whether accompanied by substantial proof or not. All as a natural consequence, of course, of the eons of propaganda and social engineering performed on us, the masses, by the ruling elite. If the assumption of an extraterrestrial origin of humanity and all life on Earth is correct, I'm aware that this does not categorically answer the creation or evolution question. It merely deflects it much further back in time to the origins of extraterrestrial life. But the particular argument falls outside of the scope of this book. Our true origin begins much, much older, presumably than the Earth, and indeed, very possibly our solar system. There are countless stories and pictorial depictions passed down from ancient civilizations about strange visitors and unearthly beings. One of the more prominent ones being, for example, that in the mid 19th century, in what is now modern day Iraq, a huge find of clay tablets was made by Sir Austin Henry Layard, an English archaeologist. Thought to be from the Sumerian culture, these tablets depicted an extraordinary story that absolutely contradicts in every way the official story of our species. Unsurprisingly, this is given no credence whatsoever by modern historians, archaeologists, and educators, as it does not fit the accepted view of history and human evolution decree, cultivated and ruthlessly and relentlessly enforced by our elite masters. I feel it somewhat significant to my point that these views are rarely considered or rationally argued against by the mainstream. They are simply ignored, presumably in the hope that they will simply go away or be regarded as unbelievable if left undiscussed and unacknowledged. Zechariah Sitchin, who could read Aramaic, Sumerian, Babylonian, and several other less well known, long dead Middle Eastern languages, was the most famous translator of these tablets, and he was convinced that these tablets tell a story of extraterrestrial visitors, creating the Sumerian civilization as a gift from the gods. These gods are referred to as the Annunaki, or those from heaven to earth came. They are considered by some researchers to be one and the same as the biblical Nephilim, the race of giants who probably were around 8 feet tall, according to some researchers. However, opinions do vary on this. So, do you guys kind of see why I'm saying that this is surface level information? This is scratching the surface of the Anunnaki, the Nephilim, the Watchers, whatever it is that you want to call them. And as I mentioned, this gentleman's books peel back those curtains and go a lot deeper into some of the things that we're going to be talking about here in this script. The tablets also describe how the Anunnaki arrived from a planet they named Nibiru, which allegedly has a huge elliptical orbit, taking it 3,600 years to travel around the sun. But whilst at its closest approach point, it is situated between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. A possible sighting was briefly reported in 1983 and then immediately forgotten and buried by the mainstream media. These clay tablets are the written accounts of traditions that go back many tens of thousands of years, but much credence can be given them, not least due to their incredibly accurate depiction of the solar system as we now know it. All these planets and their correct positions for the era, with relative size and orbits, are accurately charted. How could this knowledge have been available in those times, when most of that information has only been known to us for about 200 years or so? The answer, of course, is that it is the current view of history which is inaccurate. Ancient cultures and civilizations knew far more about the universe and its secrets than modern science and history will give them credit for. This is why many ancient cultures and cultural traditions, such as Native Americans, Native Africans, Zulu, for example, and Australian Aborigines, were all ruthlessly suppressed and their ancient artifacts destroyed by forces representing the world elite. We can also add to this list the Mayan, the Inca, the Aztec civilizations in South and Central America, brutally subjugated and systematically eliminated by the conquistadors, sponsored by the European elite in the 16th and 17th centuries, and charged with destruction and devastation of these ancient cultures that, in fact, held a much more accurate worldview than we do today. There's actually a book on the Mayan culture that I want to read for you guys in the coming days ahead. So stay tuned for that one. That one's going to be very juicy. A book that was written in, I believe, 1956, if I'm not mistaken, about the Mayan civilization. Arguably, the most important aspect of the contents of the Sumerian tablets and their description of the creation of humankind, Sitchin estimates that the timescales as around 400,000 years ago, but I personally believe that it could be much longer ago than this. According to the story within the tablets, the Anunnaki landed originally in southern Africa to mine the mineral deposits abundant in that area, primarily gold, but other minerals were also involved. According to Sitchin's translation, there was, for want of a better description, a sort of ongoing worker revolt involving the Anunnaki, mine laborers or slaves, and so the rulers, in order to avoid further inconvenience, eventually decided to generate a new race of slaves to replace the truculent laborers. This new race was a hybrid created from the genes of the Anunnaki and those of the native early humanoid species who roamed the plains of Africa, continent, and the Middle East, and at that time, and whose remains have been found in rocky strata dating back millions, not simply hundreds of thousands of years, as we are led to believe. The creators of humanity, according to Sitchin's translations, were two Anunnaki scientists known as Enki, male, and Ninkarsaj, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, a female. She was also known as Mami, and this is very likely the source of the root word meaning mother, and from which we also derive the word mammal, still prescient in many ancient and modern languages today. The leader of the Anunnaki on Earth was Enlil, the half-brother of Enki. Eventually, after many abortive, literally attempts, as the story goes, Enki and Ninkarsaj found the correct formula, and the human race was born, or created, making test tube babies of us all in the process. Could this also be the origin of the biblical story of Adam and Eve? Was Eve created symbolically, perhaps, from Adam's rib in the ancient description of the cloning process? Also within the tablets is the description of the abode of the righteous ones, or humans were said to have first been created, known as Eden. Similarly, is this the origin of the Garden of Eden? This is why I was telling you guys about that previous book that I just mentioned, The Genius of the Few, goes and talks about this in extreme detail. Again, as I mentioned, this chapter is just surface level information introducing this stuff to you all here at Library of Awakening. We will eventually get to those books. We will eventually peel back those curtains and read deeper into these topics. But again, surface level information to just kind of get the brain juices flowing. After a huge amount of research and reflection, Dr. Horn came to realize that the belief systems we have been taught regarding the origins of our physical bodies are not true. Rather than they serve an agenda that, for the most part, Western religious institutions and governments have propagated for their own selfish purposes and in order to control the minds of the sheeple. Upon arriving at this conclusion, Dr. Horn, in a totally selfless action, which he believed retained his personal and professional integrity, resigned from his professorship. He simply felt that he could no longer morally speak, teaching the inaccurate establishment views of humanity's physical origins to his students. He then authored the above quoted book, whilst living a simple life in Mount Shasta, California with his wife. Furthermore, the Sumerians were aware of the distant planets in our solar system, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, which cannot be seen with the naked eye, and they also knew that Neptune contained liquid water. How could they have known this? Given the primitive state of knowledge we are led to believe was in existence at that time, in the same drawing depicting in the celestial knowledge, the Sumerians also included a 12th planet in our solar system. Could this be a mysterious planet X or Nibiru, referred to in many ancient texts and as referred to above in the writings of Zechariah Sitchin. In the below image, made approximately 5,000 years ago by the Sumerians, one can clearly see our solar system with 12 planets revolving around the sun. There's that picture right there. Zechariah Sitchin's book, The 12th Planet, which I've personally read, now in its 45th printing and translated into 23 different languages, millions of copies sold, tells a very credible story of how the Annunaki from the 12th planet Nibiru in our solar system created the forerunners of the Sumerians and then interacted with their descendants more than 5,000 years ago. Below is an ancient Sumerian cylinder seal showing an Anunnaki flying machine or spaceship. Another of the most credible pieces of evidence indicating extraterrestrial visitation and interaction with human affairs comes from the Dogon tribe of West Africa. The credibility of the Dogon oral history is greatly enhanced by the fact that they have long had extensive knowledge of the planets and stars that modern scientists have only recently acquired. The Dogon, or Dogon, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, have known for thousands of years that Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, is a binary star system. This is in itself remarkable, simply because Sirius A, the main star, is visible to the naked eye, whereas its neighboring star, Sirius B, which orbits Sirius A, can only be detected with modern-day telescopes. The Dogon also knew that the orbit of Sirius B around Sirius A is elliptical rather than circular, and this was also only discovered recently, indeed, by mainstream science. In the oral histories of the Dogon that span thousands of years, they speak of entities from the vicinity of Sirius, who visited their ancient ancestors and airships and taught them many things, including how to live in harmony with their own divine nature. Incidentally, Sirius is known as the dog star in some quarters. Coincidence? Other civilizations, such as Egyptians, had a strong connection with the star Sirius and were most likely visited and assisted by ETs from that area of the galaxy. Also, possibly significantly, the most important female god of the ancient Egyptians, Isis, was identified with Sirius. In addition, the various basis of Mayan beliefs and legends is the book Popol Vuh. It contains a creation story of humans, which is similar to that told by the Sumerians, specifically that there were creator gods that came down from the heavens and created mankind to be slaves and serve them. It is also known that the advanced Mayan civilization seems to have appeared out of nowhere some 3,500 years ago in the jungles of Mexico, and interestingly, this was yet another elaborately developed culture with no discernible evolution from a primitive society into a more and more advanced one. Mayan artifacts tell us in no uncertain term that they were master astronomers with an intimate knowledge of the heavens. From where did this knowledge emanate? Eric von Daniken, in his often criticized by mainstream yet stunning work, Chariots of the Gods, suggested that the ancient astronauts or extraterrestrials had somehow given biological evolution a boost that would allow humans to be able to maintain a civilization. Considering all the abundance of evidence in favor of this theory of extraterrestrial origins, I would suggest that it is of many magnitudes more credible than its usurper, the theory of evolution. Indeed, macroevolution, the transition of one species into another distinctly different one, could even be said to be the most unscientific, unbelievable, far-fetched, and implausible theory of human origins and development ever promoted by mankind. As outlined in previous sections, the theory of evolution is simply a major part of the massive cover-up operation by the ruling elites regarding our extraterrestrial origins and influence on humanity, and their ongoing attempt to subjugate and enslave us, as they firmly believe that is their birthright. So I will end this chapter there. That is pretty much it for the remaining portions of this. We only got about 3 pages left, but I'll cut it short because of time. Nonetheless, as I mentioned, this is just surface level information. If you guys enjoy these types of topics, the Anunnaki, the Watchers, ancient history, where humans really came from, where deep religious, theories and all these things really came from, then let me know in the comments down below, because we have so many books on these topics that we could dive into together as a family here on the Library of Awakening and just continue to peel back the curtains and enlighten ourselves on these topics. So if you guys enjoyed this brief scratch the surface chapter in The Falsification of History by John Hammer, do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe. Remember, all the books that we talk about and cover on the Library of Awakening can be found over inside the private CyberX Discord. Many blessings to you guys. Hope to see you inside. With that being said, I will see you guys in the next episode. I know some of the perspectives that I share may be as challenging for you as they once were for me. But isn't that the beauty of exploration? Every perspective, no matter how unconventional, has something valuable to contribute to it if it's shared. Knowledge is not absolute. It's a living, breathing phenomena, shaped and reshaped over time. The important thing is not always be right, but to always be curious. Explore freely, share boldly, and learn deeply. And don't rely solely on others to validate your discoveries. Stand firm in integrity, even in the face of criticism. Remember that growth always means embracing the humility to admit when we're wrong. Learning from our errors is not a setback, it's the very essence of our progress. So, welcome to the journey. May this space inspire you to ask questions, explore the unknown, and most importantly, to awaken. This is the Library of Awakening,